It's all fun and be about it. Don't it totally. I could go sleep. That's three. 2, 3, 2, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Very good.
You do it.
Good job. High five.
High five.
Welcome to the MasterMind Library.
High five, baby. The fun and be about it.
Leader of many disciplines and one of your hosts of the MasterMind Library.
No.
The home of the MasterMind Book Club on FHTI.
We check it out. Here we it.
Thank you so much for
That's
introducing
easy to
our
do, my
live
daddy.
audience, Trigger.
You to do hope a lot, my baby. So put the birthday.
You do so good with the MasterMind Library hosting.
I want to help, Daddy.
You do very good.
Baby, the birthday party. You do you to birthday party. He will birthday party. Daddy birthday party. You see hope a lot, my baby. To the birthday party. Daddy birthday party. He man. He daddy. You could you love it. Not the town did it. Baby, some fun and they be about it and they don't click. Hey, how's that bad, baby? And it's all the fun and then read about it. He did them right. He loved my baby. It's all the fun and I be about it. You didn't leave. Hello, bad baby. I should want to do that, bad baby.
All right, very good. Good job.
You know, Daddy. You love that bad baby.
So why don't you stand up for just a second? I'm going to take this sweater off.
Okay.
I think it's about to get warm. All right. And then we get started. Trey, that sound good?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Hold on one second, buddy. Let me
Okay.
take the sweater off. All right. I'll come get the sweater in a second. Come on back. Trey, come on. All right. Okay, so we have reached episode 123. And we are in chapter 5.
7, 8, 9.
Very good. You know your numbers.
2, 1. Good job.
Good job. Yeah, you must have been practicing with Sincere and Huey and Elijah on your numbers.
This is all the number. That's all number. You don't know number. This is all the number.
Very good. All right.
You don't know number.
Okay. All right. So good job. Okay. So now we are in episode 123, chapter 5 of Booker T. Washington's own story of his life and work. All right. So let's go ahead and move to where we need to be in the chapter.
Chapter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did a chapter to you.
Yeah, we're in chapter 5, the beginning of the work at Tuskegee.
You took the
Yep, Tuskegee. So this is Tuskegee right here. See, Tuskegee University. And that's in Alabama. Now, it had a different name back then, though. Right, so you ready? No. You ready for nap time? Yep, you ready for nap time? Yeah, it looks like you ready for nap time. Are you ready for nap time? Yeah. You ready for nap time?
No.
All right, come on, let's do nap time. All right, now that we are where we need to be in the book, let's go ahead and make this a little bit larger for everybody to be able to see. And we're going to change that. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, chapter 5, the beginning of the work at Tuskegee. Before starting for Tuskegee, I found it almost impossible to find the town on any map and had difficulty in learning its exact location. I reached Tuskegee about the middle of June, 1881. I found it to be a town of some 2,000 inhabitants. about half of whom were Negroes, and located in what is commonly called the Black Belt. That is, the section of the South where the Negro race largely outnumbers the white population. The county in the county in which Tuskegee is located is named Macon. Of Tuskegee and Macon County, I prefer to quote the words of Major W. W. Screws, the editor of the Montgomery, Alabama Daily Advertiser, who visited Tuskegee in 1898, 17 years after the Tuskegee Institute was founded. Major Screws says, just at this time, there is probably no place in the United States of similar size so well known to the people of the country as this lovely little city. It has always possessed merits which brought it conspicuously before Alabamians. For in every locality in this and many southern states are noble men and women who received their educational training here. Thomas S. Woodward was one of the earliest white settlers in Macon County and was one of the commissioners appointed to lay off the site for the courthouse. He built the first house in the new town, which they called Tuskegee, a corruption of the old Indian name, Tuskegee, Tuskegee, which is said by Dr. Gatschet to be a contraction of Taskealgie warriors. The old Indian town stood in the fork of the Coosa and was the home, part of the time, of the famous half-breed statesman, Alexander McGillivray. The name passed in its present form to the county seat of the new county. Tuskegee was settled by men who were well-to-do in a material point of view. They owned rich lands on the creeks and streams and in the prairie section of the county. This point is on a high, dry ridge, and from time immemorial has been noted for its healthfulness. Here came those who wished to build homes for their families, to have congenial company, and to give their children educational advantages. They did not desire the projectors of the Montgomery and West Point Railroad to put the town on its route because of the interruption it was feared would be occasioned to the schools. From the very beginning of its existence, education has been the main feature of Tuskegee, and through its schools and colleges, a population gathered here which has never been excelled in point of refinement, politeness, and all the gentle amenities which tend to make life comfortable. The town of Tuskegee was first settled about 1830. James Dent built the first house. The town was first laid out in 1833. Mr. G. W. Campbell came to the county with his father from Montgomery in 1835, and at that time, perhaps 150 people were in and about what now comprises Tuskegee's territorial limits. There was no courthouse building, and court sessions were held in a small log house with a dirt floor. When court was not in session, the building was used as a schoolhouse. The Creek Indians were the Creek Indians were in great numbers in the neighborhood, but they were friendly and peaceful, and in 1836 commenced to move to their far western home, going overland to Montgomery, where they took steamer for New Orleans. Tuskegee is one of the model towns in the way of good order. Among the white settlers here are Dr. W. J. Gautier and Messrs. I'm not sure what that stands for. G. W. Campbell, J. W. Bilbro, J. O. A. Adams, and W. H. Wright. They have a perfect wealth of interesting reminiscence connected with the early days of all East Alabama. Although they have passed the 60 years, they are healthy men, engaged in business, and set a splendid example of energy and active life to the younger generation. The firm of Campbell and Wright has been in existence, possibly, longer than any other in Alabama. The Montgomery and West Point Railroad is about 5 miles distant from Tuskegee, the nearest station being Cheaha. From there to Tuskegee, until about 20 years ago, the usual mode of conveyance for passengers and baggage was stagecoach and omnibus, while all goods were transported by wagon. It was a tiresome, troublesome, and expensive method. This difficulty has been overcome through the Tuskegee Railroad, which now connects the 2 points. The population of Macon County before 1860 was largely heavy-landed proprietors. They suffered immensely by the results of the war from disorganized labor, and reverses stripped them of much of their property. The county is almost exclusively agricultural, and the average yield year by year of corn, cotton, peas, potatoes, and other things grown on well-regulated farms is fairly good. When I reached Tuskegee, I found that Mr. Lewis Adams, a colored man of great intelligence and thrift, who was born a slave near Tuskegee, had first started the movement to have some kind of normal school in Tuskegee for the education of colored youth. At the time he conceived this idea, Honorable W.F. Foster and Honorable A.L. Brooks, both white Democrats, were members of the Alabama legislature. And Mr. Adams so interested them in the movement that they promised to use their influence in the legislature to secure an annual appropriation of $2,000 toward the expenses of a normal school, provided one could be properly organized and started. Foster and Brooks were successful in their efforts to secure the appropriation, which was limited in its use to helping to pay teachers. A board of 3 commissioners was appointed to control the expenditure of this $2,000. When the school was first started, this board consisted of Mr. Geo W. Campbell, Mr. M. B. Swanson, and Mr. Lewis Adams. After the death of Mr. Swanson, Mr. C. W. Hare was elected in his stead. When I reached Tuskegee, the only thing that had been down toward the starting of a school was the securing of the $2,000. There was no land, building, or apparatus. I opened the school, however, on the 4th of July, 1881, in an old church and a little shanty that was almost ready to fall down from decay. On the first day there, there was an attendance of 30 students, mainly those who had been engaged in teaching in the public schools of that vicinity. I remember that during the first months I taught in this little shanty, it was in such a debilitated condition that whenever it rained, one of the larger pupils would very kindly cease his lessons and hold the umbrella over me while I heard the recitations. But these little buildings, as inadequate as they were most gladly furnished by the colored people, who from the first day that I went to Tuskegee to the present time have done everything within their power to further the interests of the school. One curious thing that happened in connection with the students was, as additional pupils began to come in, some of them had been attending schools taught by some of those who came to the Tuskegee school. And, in several cases, it happened that former pupils entered higher classes than their former teachers. And that concludes chapter 5. On our next episode, we'll be going into chapter 6, the first year at Tuskegee. Some powerful messages here, y'all. Stick with us. We're about to learn how Tuskegee University comes to be. All right. Y'all be blessed. And I look forward to seeing y'all in the next episode. And expose your gift.